Hello, this is Dave. Got another game here. It's going to be a Caro-Kann. The ECO code will be B17. This will be a Smyslov variation of it. Our themes will be preventing castling, open a file in front of a king, tactics, and a sack of a piece for the attack. So let's get going. This is a game that was played at chessworld.net. White is a 2784, black is a 2636. So let's get going. E4, C6, D4, D5, knight to C3, D takes, knight takes, and knight to D7. This is the beginning of the Smyslov variation. Knight to G5. This is an aggressive variation that aims at the F7 square and possibly the E6 square. Next is knight at G to F6 and bishop to C4. As you can see, white is putting pressure on the F7 pawn with his bishop and knight, and if black didn't make a good move, in fact he made a really bad move, bishop takes F7 is checkmate. Best move here is E6, and now queen to E2, and you can see again white adds to that pressure against E6. He's moved the focus of his attack from F7 to E6. He's got the bishop, knight, and queen all aiming at the E6 square. And of course this would be a very good time for white if, again, black made a poor move to sacrifice a piece, open up the center, and possibly very quickly mate black's king. Next move is knight to B6, which is the best move in this position, at least in my opinion, and of course by this 2600 player also. The knight attacks the C4 bishop, and the C8 bishop protects the E6 square. Next was bishop to D3, H6, knight to F3, and next is C5. This is a typical move of the pawn break by black in the Caro-Kann. Next is bishop to E3, and now knight at B to D5, attacking the E3 bishop. White plays knight to E5, bishop to D6, knight at G to F3, and white has almost finished his development. He just needs the castle and he'll be all caught up. And black plays castle. So he only needs to develop his light squared bishop and he will be finished with his development also. Now white begins a very interesting combination here. Starts with D takes C5, knight takes E3, C takes D6. White decides to capture black's strongest bishop, his dark squared bishop, instead of capturing the knight at E3. Black responds with queen to A5 check, and now C3, and black plays knight takes G2 check, breaking up white's kingside pawns. White plays king to F1, knight to F4, attacking the light squared bishop and the queen. White plays queen to D2, and knight takes D3, and queen takes D3. I've got a lot of things marked here. Notice the white's pawns. He's got a pawn at H2, F2. They are isolated, and he's got a 4-pawn to 2-pawn advantage on the queen side. So if white could possibly get those pawns moving, he could very easily have 2 possible passed pawns on the queen side. Black's pawns are pretty well in good shape. He's got 4 on the king side and 2 on the queen side. And also note that white has a very strong passed pawn at D6. This could cause a lot of problems for black as the game progresses. But the most important part of this position is that white is able to take this H1 rook, move it to G1, and it's lined up with the black king. Yes, he has lost that pawn. He's unable to castle, but the compensation is he's now going to have a rook very shortly on the half-open G file directly in front of black's king. Next move is B6, rook to G1. Just like I said earlier, he moves that rook over to that G file so he can attack that black king. Next move is bishop to B7. Black has completed his development, and now white plays queen to D4. Black plays rook at A to D8, attacking the D6 pawn, trying to prevent it from moving any further. Next is rook to D1, And let me take this arrow away for a second. And the next move is queen takes a2. Now, let's go back a move, because what black has done, he's kind of maybe taken his queen out of play. And if he would have left it at a5 instead of taking that pawn, possibly after a knight move or something like that, he still has the ability of bringing this queen over to the king side to help with the defense of his king. But he decided to take the pawn. He snatched the pawn. He's a pawn up. And he still has the possibility of bringing this queen back to d5 and exchanging queens and possibly slowing up white's attack. But white still has a 3-pawn to 2-pawn advantage in the center and queen side. And by exchanging these pieces, it might not be the best move, but it's definitely not the worst move or whatever. But anyway, just kind of keep in mind that sometimes when you snatch a pawn, you actually get your queen or that piece out of play. Now, right now, the queen can get back in, but let's see how the game progresses. White's next move is c4, preventing black's queen to getting to that d5 square and possibly exchanging queens. So he plays queen to a4. Next is rook to d3, bishop to e4, attacking the rook, and now the rook slides to a3. And this move has multiple potential. First off, you can see the rook is attacking the queen at a4. You can also possibly capture the a7 pawn, and with the assistance of the knight, put pressure on the f7 square. He could also possibly move this rook to either g3, doubling the rooks on the g file, or to h3, possibly attacking this h6 pawn and winning it, because the g pawn still has that pin on the king. Next move is queen to b4, and now white plays knight to g4. White's going to begin a very interesting combination that's going to rip open black's king side. So let's see how white does it. Black plays bishop to g6, closing up that open g file, and now knight takes f6, g takes f6, and you can see that white's attack could very easily capture this f6 pawn, but the pawn is not as important as the pin. So white's next move is queen to e4, putting pressure against the bishop and possibly going to be winning it. Next move is rook to d7, and of course black could have won the d6 pawn, but he's more interested in using this rook as a defense on the king side. Next move is knight to h4, and white increases his attacking pieces against the black king and of course the g6 bishop. Black plays f5. Next is rook takes g6. The sack completely rips open black's king side. Next is f takes g6. Queen takes e6 check. Black protects with rook at f to f7. Queen to g6 check, rook to g7, and now queen to e6 check. At this point in the game, black resigned. Like I said, these are two very skilled players, and black decided that his chances were not very good. You can plug this position in on a good chess engine like Fritz or Ripke, and you can see that white has a very, very strong advantage. The knight's going to eventually capture that pawn at f5. He'll be able to bring his rook over, and if you look also, black's queen is pretty well out of play at the b4 square. So taking that pawn at a2, and with white's ability to push that pawn up to c4, effectively took the black queen out of play, and that is one major reason why black ended up resigning. So hope you enjoyed the game. I enjoyed bringing it to you. Until next time.